To you, perhaps I am just a glass of water, a hot shower, a good drink for your crops. To you, I am invisible as the energy that has illuminated your lamp. You might not think of me at all, although I am the source of much of what keeps you alive. If you do think of me in the form that you receive me, through a faucet or a sprinkler, and marvel at how I sustain so much of your life, do you think of where I come from? Did you know that I am a mighty river? That I once careened gracefully through a majestic valley? A valley that in its day rivaled the glory of its sister, Yosemite Valley. A valley that was not only home to me, the mighty river, but to generations of Miwok Indians, thousands of species of birds, animals, and plants. A valley about which John Muir said,
"The sublime rocks of its walls seem to glow with life, whether leaning back in repose or standing erect in thoughtful attitudes, giving welcome to storms and calms alike. They browse in the sky, their feet set in the groves and gay flowery meadows, while birds and bees and butterflies help the river and waterfalls to stir all the air into music."
These paintings and photos you have seen are all I have left to show you of that valley, Hetch Hetchy Valley. For you are looking at me now, and that isn't at all what you see. Now I sit incarcerated in a holding tank, the captured river and the reservoir, having drowned out the precious valley which lies beneath me. I am Tueeulala, and I want you to know my story and the story of my home. I do not begrudge you my water. I ask you rather to consider the way in which it has been taken. I will show you how this wall of destruction came to be. I will show you how the damming of Hetch Hetchy made history and changed America's policies on wilderness. And mostly, I'm going to show you how we can both survive, you with your water and power, and me with my precious home restored to its natural, magical state. Listen, and we will go back to the source. In the early 1900s, when California was in the midst of an industrial boom, urban areas like San Francisco were searching for ways to bring precious water to the city and surrounding areas. As early as 1904, Hetch Hetchy was marked as a dam site, allowing San Francisco to harness my pure, clean waters and generate a lucrative power source, both of which they could broker to surrounding areas. At first, the idea was crushed under heavy opposition from environmentalists, led by John Muir and the newly formed Sierra Club.
Sierra Club was a very young organization at that time, and its membership actually numbered in the hundreds. And so to go against the city of San Francisco was a pretty major thing.
A lot of things were changing right there, and Americans began to look nostalgically at the frontier experience. They began to think, gee, we had a frontier, we were shaped by the frontier, and now we're losing it.
I think the Sierra Club got as far as it did at the time, but of opposing damming of Hetch Hetchy was with the support of national type of groups, many from the East, the American Civic Association, and its support from a lot of the press, the leading newspapers of the day, the magazines of the day, the editorials they got supporting the, quote, nature lovers, unquote.
Then, in 1906, a devastating earthquake created great fires in San Francisco, and the issue of water came to the forefront of public and political debate. Muir and his supporters fought diligently, pointing out that sinking Hetch Hetchy was not the only and certainly not the best way to address the city's water needs.
The Sierra Club at that time didn't object to that. They said, yes, you do need an alternative source of water, but it's not Hetch Hetchy. There's lots of other places that you can build a reservoir and to get that water from.
The first thing Roosevelt, being a good politician, asked, he says, isn't there any other place we can get this water? Well, the answer is, yeah, sure, there were other places you could get the water. You could get the water, for one thing, further downstream.
Eventually, though, they lost the battle when Congress passed the infamous Raker Act in 1913, a year before Muir died of what many say was a broken heart.
Damn Hetch Hetchy, as well damn for water tanks the people's cathedrals and churches, for no holier temple has ever been consecrated by the heart of man.
And he did feel that it was primarily a political decision that had been made without the full information of the public throughout the United States.
You see, the long process of building the dam involved chopping down thousands of ancient trees, blasting through the granite walls of the valley, and the obliteration of a home for Native Americans and their sacred burial grounds. Also lost was habitat for countless plant and wildlife species. And of course, stopping me from continuing to flow freely through the valley. With all this devastation, the city of San Francisco had successfully captured part of a national park as a means of generating income from the sale of valuable water and power.
Hetch Hetchy confronted Americans with an agonizing decision. It tapped into the ambivalence that we felt about wilderness and about civilization, and what was the proportion and how much wilderness was necessary, and could we have overdevelopment. All these ideas were swirling around the end of the frontier and swirling around the transition from the 19th to the 20th century. And one indication of that ambivalence was the vote on the Raker Act, the act that authorized the dam at Hetch Hetchy. And the vote was a 43 affirmative, 28 negative, and 29 abstaining. Now that's a close vote.
Well, San Francisco promised a lot of things to the people of the nation, that there'd be great swimming and boating.
Although the battle for Hetch Hetchy was lost, and the valley never transformed into the beautiful lake and recreation center Americans were promised, an outcry for protecting national parks was born in the wake of Hetch Hetchy, and people began to speak out more and more about conservation and preservation.
Everybody got involved. Editorial writers got involved. If we'd had 60 Minutes back then, they would have featured it. It was a big deal. And so here was the focal point, the first time American culture debated the values of wilderness and the claims and needs of civilization.
David Brower was the first executive director of the Sierra Club, and one of the things the Sierra Club was doing at the time were leading outings around the Sierra and the Southwest. But David Brower also felt that there was a lot of very important environmental issues at the time, and there was a proposal to actually build a dam in Dinosaur National Monument up in Utah-Wyoming border. And at that time, David Brower organized an effort to defeat those dams and to protect the national park system. And the rallying cry for that was, never again something like Hetch Hetchy.